Hey guys, it's M. And before this video starts, this was my blind reaction to Feeble King's last Ds2 video. I understand Feeble King is a pretty divisive individual when it comes to Ds2, and I just kind of wanted to watch one of his videos and react to it. This isn't me going super deep and in-depth at every single point he made. This was just my snapshot reactions to a lot of what he was saying. This isn't going to be like the next H-Bomber v Mauler type thing. This wasn't some super scripted, well thought out hit piece against what he was saying. This is just what I was feeling in the moment. I was originally gonna scrap this video, but I still think I made some pretty valid points, and looking back, I thought it was kind of funny, so I thought it was still worth uploading. But without further ado, let me hand it off to Past Me.
I'm gonna be reacting to Feeble King's latest video about Dark Souls 2. I'll probably get to the other ones one day, but for right now, let's look at his latest, just in case any opinions have changed or anything. I've seen a bit of this video, I didn't see a ton of it. So we're gonna experience most of this together, so let's get into it, yeah?
When I first played Scholar and saw the bad hitboxes and enemy spam, I thought, this, I'm out, and I ran past everything.
Do I need to say this again? I feel like I said this in my video about this Dark Souls 2 hitbox thing. Like, every Dark Souls has that problem, though. And people say it's more common in Dark Souls 2, but I get, cause the game is like 3 times longer than all the other ones, but who has these awful hitboxes? Let's think about it, right? Who are the most complained about people? Pursuers grab at low ADP. That's the earliest example. Mimics, there are not even that many mimics in the game. I think there's like 4. Like, in Scholar, I think there's like 4 or 3 of them. That doesn't happen that often. Who else do we complain about? Alon. Alon's, the part of where it hits is really early, so it makes it look really stupid. I'll give you that one. But that's also DLC, so that's like endgame. When people say Dark Souls 2 have awful hitboxes, they always lean on Pursuer or the Mimics. And there's not that many of either of those things. I don't even know if I have the clip anymore. There was a clip where I was fighting a big rat, and I straight clipped through him entirely. I had a clip in Dark Souls 1 where the undead was straight hitting me, and it wasn't counting. Like, every Souls game has these problems. Dark Souls 2 doesn't even have it that often. And if someone goes, well, every enemy in the game has had a weird hitbox for me, then I don't even know what to say to that. I've never had that experience. I've beat the game like 20 times or something. This whole hitbox issue that a lot of people love to lean on with Dark Souls 2, I don't think it's as prevalent as people want to make it to be, you know? Let's keep going.
Hey, that guy didn't like the game, and he played differently than me, therefore Madka's bad. But what if slowly murdering hordes of enemies on every level and boss run is boring? I could have always fought every enemy on every level of Scholar.
Now I want to bring up an amazing area that I love in Dark Souls 1. Duke's Archives. Same fucking thing. Honestly, you could say this about the entire end half of Dark Souls 1. You could say it about Blight Town. I don't know. You don't really need to kill every enemy. The only example where you may have to is literally Iron Keep. In Scholar, that is the only area where I feel like I need to kill them. Also, I've said this before, a lot of Dark Souls 2 enjoyment comes from the RPG mechanic, getting skills, looking around the area, stuff like that. It's not just the fighting. This is the reason people like Dark Souls 3 that much. Because you really just have to think about fighting, and everything else doesn't really matter that much. It's there, but it's not a huge mechanic. I can respect his opinion of saying, well, it's boring, and I don't really like any of that stuff. Which, that's a personal opinion, so I can't, take that away from him. I'm just like, like, I don't really have anything to say to that. I heavily disagree. I'm not gonna sit here and say that the combat is the most riveting part of Dark Souls 2. It's not. I've said that much. Just, there's like 8 million other aspects of the game that I feel if you pay attention to them, you would like them. Just combat isn't specifically the only point of Dark Souls 2.
The first thing I realized after playing through Scholar slowly is that it's not hard. It's punishing. I have infinite healing through life gems, so I can slowly clear rooms of enemies while hit trading with those enemies to win with little to no mechanical difficulty.
Like, okay, this healing thing, it is very easy to get 99 life gems and then just heal the entire game. That's true. Honestly, there's a whole point I could go into about how Dark Souls 1 is a good game, right? It's my least favorite, but I would say it's a good game, right? If you had a strength build in Dark Souls 1, you could hit trade with literally every person in that fucking game. Are we forgetting about Havel Knights? Like, the Havel build, which had so much poise and did so much damage, you would shart on literally almost everything that showed up. And you didn't even need that armor to do that. You could use pretty much any heavy set to do that To a lesser effect, of course, but that was still a thing. You don't need to play Dark Souls 2 hit trading. You don't need to play Dark Souls 1 hit trading either. So if we're saying that the playstyle of just hit trading is boring, don't do that. Like, saying that hit trading is specifically a Dark Souls 2 thing when one, you can do it pretty simply, not as simple, but pretty simply, is a little crazy to me. I don't know.
Dark Souls 2 combat isn't all that hard, but if you do f*** it up and die, then have fun killing giant hordes of enemies to get back to where you were.
Duke's Archives, Blight Town, any of these areas ring a bell that had the exact same problem. Like, the only game that didn't have this problem is 3, because 3 had like 8 million bonfires. So a lot of the times if you die to a boss, you could just immediately go to them again. Why do we pretend this is only a Dark Souls 2 issue? Undead Parish, I fucking hated running through Undead Parish. Again, I'm not the biggest Dark Souls 1 fan. However, that game had the exact same issue. And we could say, well, running past enemies isn't an option. If we say running past enemies isn't an option in Dark Souls 1, we're on something. It's harder. I've said it's harder even in my video. It's definitely an option if you know what you're doing. I don't care to play Dark Souls 1 enough to get to that point where I know how to route everyone around so I can just skip them. But since the aggro range is way shorter in that game, the only difference is that the areas are a lot more like boxed in. Like, why do we have to specifically hate on Dark Souls 2 and then like gloss our eyes over Dark Souls 1? I really think the only reason people complain about Dark Souls 2 so much on issues like this is because it is significantly longer. Obviously, the longer game is gonna have more of the same issues if it's longer. That just makes sense. If they had a Dark Souls 4 and it basically played exactly like 3, but longer, I guarantee people would go like, oh, it's just dodge, R1. Oh, for all 80 bosses. It's like, come on.
I prefer games with high mechanical difficulty and little punishment, like a Dark Souls 3 level 1 run.
Why did we bring up a challenge one? That's not even like the base game. High mechanical difficulty and little punishment. So what, low stakes, high reward? And it's a challenge run. We have to literally bend the game to do that. You're not even really meant to play the game that way. Dark Souls 3 is not even the most difficult Dark Souls. If I had to say any of them is, I'd probably say 1. Because near the end half of 1, like towards the DLC, the enemies are pretty difficult. 3, the bosses have a lot more of a varied moveset. But once you learn it, they're not hitting you. Nadir is a prime example of this. Everyone thinks Nadir is so hard. If you learn how to fight Nadir, he'll only do 2 moves. They're super easy to dodge, and that's a main reason I think that fight is really boring and one of the worst in 3. High mechanical skill. Fucking tell me the high mechanical skill in Deacons. And some may say, oh, you can't really talk on this. I did an unleveled Dark Souls 3 knife-only run. It was like the most miserable shit because so many bosses are not skill-based in Dark Souls 3. There's a good clump of them that are, but there's a good clump of them that aren't. It's not even really skill-based. It's not like Tekken where it's like, oh, he's gonna mix me up. It's a mastery thing. Once you play the game enough, he's not doing shit to surprise you. It's just knowing what he does. This is all Dark Souls has ever been in different aspects. 1 and 2 was mostly areas because the bosses were piss easy for a majority of those 2 games. 3, you just learn the boss fights because the areas are fucking dog in 3 and you can ignore everything in that game. If we're talking about ignoring enemies, Dark Souls 3 is the prime game where you can walk past everything.
However, enemy spam isn't my only issue with Scholar. It's time I respond to the most liked criticism against my video where I said that vanilla is better than Scholar. To summarize the basic argument, this guy says that yes, Scholar does have enemy spam, but if you just kill all the enemies, then the extra levels gained makes the player stronger, thus offsetting the difficulty. I have many issues with this comment. Firstly, Dark Souls 2 has the most mechanically simple and easy bosses in the series.
By technicality, I mean, yes, there are the more bosses. But Dark Souls 1 is literally the exact same thing. Are we gonna pretend that every boss before, like, Gwyn isn't fucking easy? Who's hard? Ornstein? Longer game with the same issues, so everyone wants to bring it up. I don't agree with this dude's point of, well, you can fight everyone, just, once you cap out, because, you can level up more. It's not really a problem. You obviously do level up way more in Scholar than you would in Base. because there's a lot more to do, obviously. But do we fight everyone in every Dark Souls game? Is this a thing we do in any of them?
But then I realized something. I'm sort of a Dark Souls 2 god at this point since I've played way too much for this channel and I never die. I know Dark Souls 2 fans won't admit it, but it's true. I've memorized all of the gang squads and use infinite healing to almost never die. I can't in good faith say that Iron Keep is easier or harder than Shrine of Amana because I didn't die in either area once.
So are we saying since we play the game a lot and we don't die, it's not difficult? Again, people love to lay on this skill thing like it's Tekken or Street Fighter or a fighting game. This thing that Dark Souls is this super deep skill-based game is not true. Once you learn how the game works, it's not easy. Him saying, well, I don't die to any of these areas, so like, what's the difficulty? I could say the same thing about 3. I could say the same thing about 1. Once you play them enough, you're not dying to anything. Fucking Dark Souls 2, let's talk about it. The first area that I went to in my first playthrough was accidentally, it's the area that Flex Isle's in with the ship. I don't remember the exact name at this moment of time. I died to that area like 80,000 fucking times because I didn't really know what I was doing. Now that I know what I'm doing, I'm like never die in that area. The only reason I was dying was because I didn't know what to do. This is how every fucking Souls game works. When you don't know how to fight Midir, he's fucking ridiculous. If you don't know how to fight Soul Cinder, he's fucking ridiculous. Once you learn how to fight them, you're not dying. Because again, this isn't Tekken, this isn't Street Fighter, where you're responding to mix-ups that change every single time you're fighting a new person. You're getting used to how every character works. It's not like that. It's not that kind of game. I'm like, they don't really make games like that where they mix it up a ton. The only game where they kind of did was Elden Ring. So, I don't... I hate this skill thing that every fucking Dark Souls fan lies on. It's a learning curve. All of those games are learning curves. 1, 2, and 3. I don't like Dark Souls 1. I guarantee if I sat down and learned that game, I'd be able to ice the whole fucking thing. I don't even think Dark Souls 1 is that hard. A lot of my depths, I was like, I was in a bad position. I should have known this enemy does 80% of my health bar. Like, it was stuff like that. I have the exact same experience with 2 and 3. I will rarely die in 2 and 3 because I just learned how everything works. You let him keep talking.
Getting more souls from killing all of the enemies doesn't make the late game feel any more balanced because Scholar's too easy due to infinite healing for me to notice any change at all. But I can say that it is really boring.
What this video really sounds like, I know we're only like halfway through, but what this video really sounds like is he's someone who likes the fighting part and doesn't really care about anything else. If you're only looking at fighting, Dark Souls 2 is the easiest one. I'll always say that, right? But Dark Souls 2 has the most outside of fighting than any of the other games. The only game that has more than it is Elden Ring. But we never talk about that. All we ever talk about is, there's a lot of enemies. There's a lot of enemies. I don't really like that. I don't really like that. I don't really. There's so many enemies. What else is there to focus on? I'm like, builds, fashion, some character quests, maybe. Any of that? No, we're just gonna talk about enemies specific. Like, bro, if I was to talk, bro, this makes me mad. If I went into Dark Souls 3 and I said I want to make my Dark Souls 1 or 2 build, honestly, it's gonna be significantly fucking weaker because Dark Souls 3 only really focused on melee builds. That was the main focus and catch of that game. So if I went into it expecting that, I'd be disappointed. People keep going into Dark Souls 2 expecting fucking Dark Souls 3 combat when that's just not that game. I understand why he doesn't like it if that's the case, but like, we're not gonna talk about the interactable areas, like how you can affect the world. We're not gonna talk about any of that shit.
I also came to a more important realization. Difficulty in Scholar is not really measured through deaths, but through how time-consuming the level is to complete.
Why is Blighttown difficult? Because you have to spend like 30 fucking minutes figuring out how the map works. Duke's Archive. Every enemy does fucking half health. And if you, like, why do we do this? It's measured by how long it takes. Like, yeah, dog. All of them are like that, bro. Just you get stuck on a different aspect of the game. That doesn't mean that's different. If I died a shit ton to Manus, it's obviously going to take a lot of time for me to deal with Manus. And if okay, so are we saying if you first try everything, how long it would take to deal with it? That's the problem, is that Dark Souls 2 would take long to deal with. Again, Exhibit A, Duke's Archives. Fucking the area the four kings are in. That area sucks dick.
On the topic of wasting the player's time, this leads to my main issue with Scholar. It's not the difficulty, it's the pacing. Every level packs so many enemies so close together that it destroys the game's pacing. Dying to ganks that undo all the player's progress makes this problem even worse for new players.
Every level? The bonfire in this area that he's playing is not even that far back. I'm 90% sure it is like down the way.
If I'm being honest, every time I play Scholar, I'm already upset in the Forest of the Fallen Giants. Not because of difficulty, but because it's just so f***ing boring.
Why are we killing the sleeping people then? What?
My question to Scholar fans is this: is there any limit to the amount of enemies in a level where you'd finally admit that FromSoft had gone too far? Or will you guys always repeat the intelligent arguments that FromSoft fans are known to make, like, mad 'cause bad?
The only bro, okay. I'll give anyone Iron Keep, cause we fucking kneel, we hold Iron Keep up on its neck, and we go, "This is your game." This would be like if I grabbed deacons and shoved them in your face and said, "This is your boss, huh? What about Wolnir? That's your boss? This is the game with the good boss fights, huh? That's your boss, huh?" Well, this is how many enemies followed me in Iron Keep. Again, I don't love Iron Keep. However, if you run past enemies, the game has a thing to deter you from just running past enemies. You don't have to like the game being played, but let's not pretend there's no reason they do that.
To me, it is obvious that Scholar goes so far in enemy spam that it's completely past the limit of what is acceptable in game design by a wide margin.
Why are we fucking dick riding Iron Keep? Oh my god! I swear to god I'm gonna make a video called Why I Hate Dark Souls 3 and only show... I wanna do that now, bro. I'm gonna go like, Dark Souls 3 sucks, and I'm only gonna show Soul of Cinder curved sword moveset. Bro, show me any other footage. We have the dick suck Iron Keep because it is the main area that has this problem. No other area in the game is as bad as Iron Keep. I understand why people don't like Iron Keep. There's a ton of enemies in it. I'm not gonna say that you're mad because you're bad at the game, because that's fucking stupid. Because Dark Souls 2 isn't that hard of a game. But why are we only talking about Iron Keep? The game is like 3 times the length of Dark Souls 1 and 3. But we're only talking about one area. What other area has a ton of enemies in it that I can think of that's really annoying? Freya's area? But in Scholar you can use the torch, so you don't need to fight any of them. Skeleton Lords? But they die in like 2 hits. Like, what are these super fucking jam-packed areas that are all like Iron Keep apparently? Where are they? There's a lot more enemies in Dark Souls 2, but to pretend that they're all to the extent of like Iron Keep and Shrine is insane, because they're not. The main reason Iron Keep is why it is like so badly received, and I understand it, is because the knights do a lot of damage, they're way faster than you, and there's a shit ton of them. That does not apply for like 90% of the enemies in the fucking game. A ton of them are really fucking slow, do low damage, like, and they're not as many as there are in Iron Keep. Who stays in this area, bro? Bro, because I'm looking, he's in the catacombs, I think. There's like 2 enemies in there, bro. I've never even stuck in that area for long enough for there to be multiple enemies. Just walk past them. It's the easiest way to... If you walk past them, that room takes 2 seconds. This would be like if I said, man, these boss ganks are crazy, and I showed you 4 kings. I showed you 4 kings with a low damage weapon. Like, maybe don't do that then. And I understand you might go, oh, are you saying he's playing the game wrong? Well, if you don't want if you don't want this outcome, don't do that.
There's one comment that said that Scholar the First Sin to Dark Souls is like Cat Mario to Mario.
Okay, that's a fucking awful take. It's like Cat Mario?
I think that some Dark Souls fans are just incapable of producing negative feelings about the game because they love it so much.
Yeah, it's true. People in the Souls community love the dick suck. I don't think Dark Souls 2 is a perfect game. I just think that people against it, like, the fuck was that? I think people against it lay really hard on specific aspects and go like, I can't look at anything else. Like, they get tunnel vision. But I'm not gonna sit here and go like, yeah, Dark Souls 2 is the perfect game. It has the best bosses, the best areas. Like, I wouldn't say that, because I don't think that's true. I personally enjoy it. I can look past a lot of its issues, and a lot of its issues that people go like, this is fucking game breaking, I don't think are. Like, the bosses being mostly mediocre, I don't really mind that personally, right? The enemy gangs, they're not as bad as this dude putting it. They're really not. Like, this grave area that he's showing, where he's fighting them, bro, I don't think I've ever even... I think on my first playthrough, I just walked past them. You know? Like, this is the only... I'm trying to think. Once you know how to run past areas in Dark Souls 2, you can run past areas, just not to the same extent as 3, because in 3, you basically don't have to interact with a majority of that game unless you want to do that. So it's like... I don't really know what to say to this, bro. But yeah, Dark Souls fans are kind of... I understand that you like the thing, but to pretend that it's flawless is crazy. I don't think any of the Souls games are flawless. They all have problems. I've made reviews on them if you want to hear them. I was about to rehash them. I don't gotta do that. I have a YouTube channel. I've already made videos about that.
Somehow, playing Scholar correctly made Iron Keep worse.
I want to address this correctly thing where he's fighting everyone, because I don't do that. I'll fight enemies if they're in the way, because that makes sense. It's the same way you would play Dark Souls 1. If they're in the way, then deal with them. If they're not, who gives a shit? Like, why would you fight them? Bro, that made me lose my point. I didn't expect him to say that.
Let's discuss. So I began Iron Keep by...
Why are we taking fucking Iron Keep? I'm like, please! This would be like if I said I hate Dark Souls 1 because I don't like the second half that everyone says they don't like. Bro.
Then, in typical Dark Souls 2 fashion, my weapon was about to break, so I couldn't fight the boss. Another example of Dark Souls 2 jank not working when paired up with enemy spam.
Item durability matters in Dark Souls 2. Unlike 3, where you could hit fucking gods for 20 years and it never breaks. Like, I hate this. I hate that argument. Because Dark Souls 2 durability kind of matters. That everyone's like, this shit is in tatters. Like, they don't have repair powders or anything. We just ignore that part. I understand if you don't like it, however, come on.
Now that the bridge is fully flat, the enemies on the other side aggro and make the boss run literally impossible. I tried so many times to no avail.
So, if we're this literal example that he's showing right here, if I remember right, if you jump on that ledge to his left, a lot of the enemies will just straight die because they won't be able to make it to the jump. They walk, you see where this guard is? He'll walk all the way back, go to the left, and go to jump on a little pillar down here, and then he'll die. It is very possible to skip this. Even in my knife-only run where I was doing Iron Keep and I was stuck on Iron Keep for a long time, someone told me you can skip this entire area. I don't know the skip, but again, it's not basic and right in front of you, so I understand why a normal person would make this argument, but you know? So, I mean, if you run straight to the door where the enemies are also in a straight line, they're obviously going to catch you. Again, a deterrent for people who want to skip the entire game like it's Dark Souls 3.
I was genuinely punished for clearing the level slowly and interacting with every mechanic. This game is ridiculous. It doesn't get worse than this.
So we've just blanket statemented Iron Keep with every single fucking area in the game. Okay, so if we're gonna bring up this whole do every mechanic thing, can we bring up Mytha and how if you interact with every mechanic in that area, she is significantly easier and the area gets easier? Or does that not help the point? We bring up one bad example and we go like, let's just blanket the entire game real quick. It's objectively not true. Not everything works like Iron Keep. But since we're fucking straddling that shit, we can't talk about anything else. Fucking Mytha's area, peak example, like I just gave, bro. It is the exact opposite of this. It is right before this fucking area. But we gotta make a point. We gotta make a point against the game, so we won't bring that up. That doesn't happen. Fuck that. If you get the Eye of Ava that lets you see things that are meant to be unseen, and you go back to base game and you fight those invisible enemies like the ones in the shaded woods and around that area, you can see all of them. The game rewards you for interacting with it. Going to the shaded woods, if you hit the trees, it attracts the ghost people so they don't backstab you. Another reward for interacting with the area. Vengarwell's entire armor set is a reward you get from interacting with the area. The fucking Aldia dragon, a reward for interacting with the area. There are so many of them. But because you want to focus on this one point to blanket statement the entire game, please. Say another place you have a problem with. Say fucking Dragon's area or something. Like, anything, bro, please.
Also, servers are back up, so a quick side note. Not only is Scholar the most punishing Souls game, but you can also be invaded even if you aren't human. And not being human means that you're at a health deficit. Oh my god.
Did we just complain about getting invaded? Because you can get invaded. There's a whole ass item in the game that makes it so you can't get invaded. Bro, there's a whole ass... when you burn the humanities, I guess we can argue that doesn't happen in any of the other games, but there also isn't an item that you can use to literally cut all invasions and most of the co-op shit off. What? Like, we would have to ignore an entire mechanic. There's a whole mechanic for why that makes sense. If you have humanity and then you burn the essence thing, you can't get invaded even when you're at full health. So if we're ignoring the go offline thing, we have to ignore an entire other mechanic because it doesn't involve fighting, which is apparently what all we want to do.
After killing Smelter Demon, I got to the worst room of Iron Keep with all the hidden archers. I said previously that a player needs a bow to make this level fair.
Okay, so again, we're on Iron Keep. Again. Love to get past this part, actually. So if we're talking about a bow being necessary, I understand what he means by a bow helps, because a bow definitely does help with the first half of Iron Keep. Who the fuck has ever complained about the second half? I just want to see if he brings it up. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna see if he, brings up the fact that there are instant kill platforms under all of the enemies in this area. Except the turtles, which are like the slowest and easiest ones to deal with. If you play this area right, you only have to fight 5 fucking enemies. But let's see if he brings that up. I don't think he will.
Instead of fighting the enemies in the room the designers placed them in, I can always just slowly lure every group really far away so that I'm safe from archers. Are you guys happy now? Did I get good now? Is this what you want?
Bro, this isn't even... Because I don't even want to say, this is a skill thing. It's the fact that you don't want to understand the game. If you don't like the game and don't want to understand it, that's fine. But don't pretend that there's no method to deal with them. You are in the funky gimmick room and you're not using it. Oh, bro, I'm about to... Bro, I want to crack open Scholar right now. If I remember right, from this position he's at right now, there is one archer to his left standing on an insta-kill platform. There's this turtle who's also standing on an insta-kill platform. Then there's another guy over here who, again, is standing on an instant-kill platform. Who do you have to... This is like one of the easiest areas in the game. The only people you really have to fight are the people right before this room. Why are we complaining about this room? Oh my god. Oh, I hate this, because this is the main reason people don't like Dark Souls 2. Because they can't just fucking hit things and they immediately get everything in the game.
I'm certain some Scholar fan will use 4D
there's no way! This is painful. I understand that most of the arguments he's probably going against aren't really thought out that well, because, YouTube comments do tend to do that. But, why are we doing this? Who does this? No. I'm a Dark Souls 2 god, by the way. Meanwhile, I don't use the instant kill platforms in this area that makes this area one of the easiest in the game.
When I first played Scholar, I had 3 main issues. The lock-on and controls are jank, the hitboxes are straight up wrong, and last but not least, why the f*** are there so many f***ing enemies?
The lock-on and controls. Now, is it Dark Souls 1 or 2? Because, one of those games, if you don't use lock-on, and you just move the camera, it's not that bad. And I understand he might not like it. It's just a difference. There's more enemies. It makes less sense to lock on all the time. There's a difference.
The hitboxes are straight up wrong.
Do you notice that the examples I brought up earlier of the hitboxes were Pursuer, Mimic, and this Alan fight? And again, we couldn't find any other real examples other than this one. There's so many wrong hitboxes in this game. Look, Alan, look! The example that you see all over the internet! Because this is the main one! Give me one that I haven't seen. Can we make a powerful point by bringing up something that, I haven't been shown, 80 times, please? Because, let's talk about this Alan hit, right? I don't know what his ADP is in this, first of all. Second of all, Alan's hitbox is basically this hilt right here. So if you're fucking making out with him at this range, he's probably going to hit you. The only reason this move looks so fucking funky is because it shoves you back on the sword. But his hitbox is like basically where his hands are and where the sword is. So if you are really close to him, there's a good chance you're gonna get hit by like the hilt part of the attack and it shoves you back. I think Pursuer has the same issue, it just looks a little weirder for him. Because I think he shoves, like when you get stuck in the grab part, which is this part, it pushes you back a lot further. So everyone's like, what? How did that hit me? Despite the fact the hitbox is closer than it looks for that move.
With the bad lock on, bad hitboxes.
That hit though. ADP is low. You rolled. He hit where you rolled at. That move is annoying, but if you're saying bad hitboxes, he literally hit you.
Even though I complained a lot in my original critique about how the game is extremely janky,
If I was locked up, I wouldn't even need to roll these attacks. Unless you're the proper distance away, which applies to any of them. I don't get it. What does he mean by that?
of course the hitbox jank is still inexcusably bad.
Do you notice that we only bring up like 3 fucking examples every time someone makes this point? And it doesn't even happen that often. Oh! I'm like, there are like 4 mimics in the game. How many times do you fight Pursuer in base game? Like twice? Once? And Alon is in the DLC. But everyone only makes these points. And the Alon point he made, his ADP was low, he rolls, and the dude swings in that direction. It hit him! Like, what? You cannot like the move for the reason of, oh, it tracks, that's annoying. I would understand if we made that complaint, but going like, look at this fucking stupid ass hitbox where he hits me. Huh? Also, we straight entire video in less than these last 2 minutes. He's not brought up anything that isn't fighting mechanics. Like, that's all this is. It sounds like a Dark Souls 3 fan wanting 2 to be 3, when it's not. Because 2 is focused on different aspects. We have not mentioned anything that Scholar added, like the NPCs being able to like emote, the fucking Dukes Dear Freya thing, new game having changes, a new ending, the Aldia thing. Like, these all might sound like small things, but when you add them all up, there's a different experience to be had. But we never talk about that, because all we want to talk about is, oh, enemies. Enemies so bad. I don't really like the enemies. I'm not an enemy fan.
Now that I've beaten Scholar without running past enemies, I can verifiably say that the way I played the game in my original critique was the most enjoyment, or the least amount of pain, I was ever going to have with the game. Playing Scholar of the First Sin correctly may be one of the most boring things I have ever done.
It's almost like you could say this exact point for Dark Souls 3. If you don't like an enemy in Dark Souls 3, just run past everything. They can't catch you anyway. And the game is so linear, you can just do that. Dark Souls 2 actually has a deterrent for you doing that. You may not like how it works, that's why it's there, so you don't do the Dark Souls 3 thing of just running past everybody. Dark Souls 1 had a different one, where most of the areas were really cramped, meaning if you understood how to maneuver everybody, you could probably still just run past everything, if you know how to get them in the right position. Yeah, we're not gonna talk about that. We're not gonna bring that up.
I just want to take this time to thank the Dark Souls 2 community. If there's one thing I learned making these videos, it's that Dark Souls 2 fans exist, and they are desperate for content. Ever since the Mauler v H-Bomber Guy war ended, the content well has been dry. And even though many of you guys dislike me and have left many mean comments, those mean comments provoked me into making more videos. So I guess insult me more if you want another video. I don't know.
Okay, so you have to understand that Dark Souls 2 fans, me included, what do we have? Everyone talks about Dark Souls 1 and 3. You have to understand that most Dark Souls 2 fans, anytime there's a video about the game they like, it's just that it's dog shit, and then most of the time, the people are making points while straight up ignoring other points. Kinda like what's happening here. I'm not saying that, let me preface this entire thing with this. I don't hate this guy. I'm just reacting to his opinions. I don't know him personally. I'm not gonna go fucking kill him! I'm not gonna say that, but it's like, I feel like that just makes sense. If you liked something, like 90% of interactions on it anywhere is people shitting on it, maybe you're gonna want to defend it. I don't know. If there was a world where people were like, hey, Dark Souls 3 sucks because, bro, let's make a hypothetical right now. I'm strong queen. You know, I'm the flip version of this dude, right? And I open Dark Souls 3 and I go, this game's dog shit. And the reason I say it's dog shit is because the RPG mechanics suck. And I ignore the fact that the combat is way better. So, yeah, let's just say that, right? The RPG mechanics suck, you know? The magic is super limited. Intelligence and strength builds are practically in the garbage. Intelligence and faith builds are completely in the garbage. I can't even use poise. Poise isn't even a mechanic anymore. Hit trading bosses is super fucking difficult now because of all those changes. I hate the game. And you know what the obvious counter argument would be? Hey, what about the fucking mechanic improvements, dickhead? And to Strong Queen, right? Her problem would be that she doesn't like the difference. The main thing with Feeble King is I think he doesn't like the differences in Dark Souls 2. I think that a lot of the ways that he painted these arguments, I think they were a bit unfair. Because again, if I focused in on some of the aspects of Dark Souls 3 and 1 that were kind of not great, and I only talked about that, like, oh, Deacons, Blight Town. The whole game is bad because all of it's like Blight Town. It wouldn't be a true statement, would it? So it's like, you know, it really just sounds like this is a guy who likes the action side of Dark Souls and doesn't really care about anything else. And I don't mean that as a shot, that's just what this sounds like. So I understand why he wouldn't like Dark Souls 2. The negative framing of it is a little crazy. The framing of this shit is so awful, fuck, I hate Dark Souls 2 fans. I think that's a little crazy. But if his main point is, like, boiled down, this is what it's giving. I haven't seen his other videos. We're probably going to get to those eventually. I feel like those are going to make my blood vessels boil, because if these are his main points, and that's just that extended, I don't know how I'm going to react to that. But maybe he'll go more into depth into some of these mechanics that I'm saying he's kind of just straight up ignoring. If his main argument is, I don't like the RPG mechanics and I don't care about the rest of that, I just want to do the action part, I could understand completely most of what he's saying. If that was literally his entire argument and this wasn't a 19-minute video of us going like, yeah, this is just dumb, I hate this, and then I go, what about this mechanic, and you went, I don't know about that, or I don't really care about that, or I'm gonna close my eyes to that part. It's like, come on, bro. I don't like Dark Souls 3 because, okay, well, I don't hate it. Let me preface it like this. Dark Souls 3 is not my favorite because it did away with a lot of mechanics that I really like. But I still like Dark Souls 3 because it has the good combat aspect. That's basically my entire argument for that game. I made a whole review of it and I did bring up basically getting to that same point. However, it's like, because did he bring up anything that he liked here? We just went, it's all negative, and I think that's the main problem that a lot of Dark Souls 2 fans have and why they tend to respond so angrily to everyone who complains about the game. Because they usually never bring up anything positive about it. They're just like, this game's dog shit. Scholar's dog shit. Scholar added literally nothing to the experience. It just made the game significantly worse. You know, everything's just bad here. Unlike Dark Souls 1 and 3, I think that's really the thing. Everyone frames it like Dark Souls 1 and 3 are perfect games, and 2 is the only one that has any sort of issues, and then we lay on them so hard we're practically breaking the bed. So it's like, I don't think that if you made a review on any Dark Souls game that's relatively critical or nuanced, I think you're going to get the same kind of comments as this dude did. But it's like, you know, like, what do I say? Like, I don't really know what else to add to that. If I made a review saying that Dark Souls 1 is fucking dog shit, I don't like Dark Souls 1, but I understand why people like it. I think that a lot of the mechanics in that game and a lot of the areas in that game are really annoying. However, there are also things that I like about Dark Souls 1. That's the reason I didn't get fucking bombarded when I reviewed Dark Souls 1, despite the fact I don't really like that game, because I talked about literally all of the other things I did like too. Because, like I said, we focused on 3 things. I don't like the enemies. I don't like the combat. And then, you know, a few other little things. I like a majority of the things Dark Souls 1. Just the problems I have with it outweigh the positives for me. But I'm still gonna bring them up. What we did here is basically go, I don't like these. And that's all there is to this game. So it's, you know? But that's the end of the video. I feel like I said everything I needed to say though. Like, what else is there for me to say about this, you know? Maybe one day we'll react to the whole. Because if these are the biggest points he got counterpoints on, I understand if he has a different opinion about them, but some of these things are just wrong. Even if, okay, so let's say let's hypothetically say he accepts he's wrong about some of these mechanics, right? And he just goes, I just don't like them. That's fine. Just say that though. I'm like, bro, we can't go, oh, getting invaded sucks, and then there's a whole mechanic to cut off invading, and we just do not acknowledge it. I guess that's been my input. I have no idea how long I've been talking. This Iron Key meat riding really pissed me off, but hey.
Anyways, this is a little different, but I've been in, and I am out.